Welcome everybody to the January 21st, 2025 meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we get a roll call of members, please? Thank you. Before we start the meeting, we will have a public hearing. So, the Tompkins County Legislature will hold a public hearing at 5:30 p.m. in Legislature chambers concerning the proposed local law number A of 2025, a local law adopting the tax exemption allowed pursuant to new real property tax law, section 421-P. If any members of the public wish to speak on this topic, this would be the time to do it. There will be a general privilege of the floor for all the other topics when we start the regular meeting. This is just to make comments on the proposed tax exemption law. Does anybody wish to speak on that topic?
I'll talk about it, I guess. May I?
Please.
Hello, I'm Amanda Kirch-Gessner, I live in Ulysses. I haven't seen the proposed legislation related to tax exemptions. Typically, unless there are very, very clear stipulations for what is public benefit, it is a very bad idea to pass legislation related to tax exemptions. Also, very, very clear rules related to clawback if tax exemptions are granted and a public benefit isn't achieved in reflection of the agreement. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. The law that we're discussing is in relation to Resolution N. So if you have access to the agenda, go ahead. There are none, is that what you said? Yeah. We might have run out. There's a big crowd tonight. So anyway, it relates to Resolution N, where you can get a lot more information about it. Does anybody else wish to speak about on the public hearing on this proposal? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the regular meeting of the Tompkins County Legislature. We've already done our Pledge of Allegiance, so we will proceed to the roll call of members.
Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion has asked to be excused. Susan Curry.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Rich John.
Here.
Ann Corman has asked to be excused. Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi has also asked to be excused. Veronica Pillar.
Here.
Lee Shirtliff.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Here.
Shauna Black.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here.
11 members present.
We have 11 members present, 9 in chambers, and the rest remote. And per our remote attendance policy, legislators Champion, Dawson, and John are eligible to vote tonight, and legislators Corman and Mezzi are not eligible to vote tonight. Okay, we are moving on to proclamation. Shauna Black, do you have a proclamation to read for us?
Sure do. Thanks, Dan. I read a few weeks ago in the Ithaca Voice that one of our very own and very respected Reverend Christina Culver was going to be retiring from Loaves and Fishes. And if you haven't worked with the Reverend, then I feel sorry for you, because she is quite the staple in our community. And the one thing that I've noticed throughout the years is that she hates attention that is directed to her, which is why I thought it was so important to do a proclamation acknowledging her in our community. But the other thing that I really respect is the fact that she's a silent hero in our community. And she does a lot of things behind the scenes that I think many of us don't recognize is actually being done. And so I wanted to just read this proclamation and really make sure that we acknowledge a very special person in our community. So Whereas Reverend Culver has faithfully served as Executive Director of Loaves and Fishes of Tompkins County for 15 years, demonstrating extraordinary leadership, dedication, and compassion in addressing food insecurity and supporting individuals in need within our community. And whereas during her tenure, Reverend Culver has been instrumental in expanding access to nutritious meals, fostering a welcome and inclusive environment, and building partnerships that strengthen the social safety net for vulnerable residents of Tompkins County. And whereas Reverend Culver has led Loaves and Fishes with a steadfast commitment to dignity, equity, and care, ensuring that all who come through its doors feel valued, respected, and supported. And whereas under her guidance, Loaves and Fishes has served as a vital resource for thousands of individuals and families, providing not only sustenance, but also hope and connection. And whereas Reverend Culver has inspired volunteers, staff, and community members alike through her vision, tireless work ethic, and unwavering compassion, leaving a lasting legacy of service and community impact. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tompkins County Legislature does hereby honor and commend Reverend Christina Culver for her outstanding contributions to our community, express our heartfelt gratitude for her years of dedicated service, and wish her a fulfilling and well-deserved retirement. Resolve further that January 21st, 2025 is hereby proclaimed as Reverend Christina Culver Day in Tompkins County in recognition of her exceptional leadership, service, and commitment to the well-being of all residents. And then the last part, in witness whereof I, our Chair Dan Klein, have hereunto set his hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of Tompkins County, State of New York, on this 21st day of January 2025.
Reverend Culver, would you like to come up and say a few words? And Shauna, would you like to present the, please, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yes, I feel rather speechless. I'm so grateful to each and every one of you, our legislative members, to make this proclamation on behalf of myself and Loaves and Fishes. My gratitude is beyond measure. I also want to say that it has been my honor and privilege to serve Loaves and Fishes these last 15 years, to bring to life, to continue to bring to life our mission to have a place for free meals, companionship, advocacy for those in need, and hospitality for those in need, regardless of one's faith, beliefs, or circumstances. And this, I'm acutely aware that it's not because of me, but because of our incredibly generous community by way of our donors, our funders, including Tompkins County, our board members, our amazing small staff, and hundreds of dedicated volunteers. This is who makes what we do possible, and I can't emphasize that enough. I'm also very moved to have my 2 out of my 3 children here, and many of my closest friends are Loaves board members. You have supported me along the way throughout these years and before in so many different ways I could never express how much. So I want to say that it's going to be very difficult for me to leave the Lowe's community because it's become mine. And I'll dearly miss regularly seeing members of our community, our guests and volunteers and staff on a regular basis. I also want to say I still think it's a miracle every day that in 3 short hours, 10 volunteers get together with a couple of our staff members and prepare and cook an incredible amount of food so that we can serve well over 300 if needed meals each day, Monday through Friday. And that really is a miracle if you think about it. We have 4 different salads, homemade soup, a vegan or vegetarian option, a side dish. It's unbelievable. I want to just share lastly that my favorite part of being at a meal is still the hum of people talking and enjoying being in our dining hall, making connections, or even if they're not talking and prefer to be alone, they're around such a loving, caring community. I had a guest tell me the other day, to my surprise, that, he typically would sit alone, and you kind of decide when it's time to sit with someone if they would like. And he said to me that this place, Lowe's, has meant so much to me. It's the first time I have felt my humanity recognized. And he, I don't know, was in his 30s or something. So with all of that, I'm also, I think I didn't mention or if I did, but St. John's has been critical in this, offering their beautiful space for us for these last 41 years. Thank you.
That is a hopefully nice way to start off a meeting. We are not going to have an executive session tonight. However, we're going to try something that we have not tried yet on advice of our county attorney. Let me read the statement. Upon adjournment of this meeting, the legislature will be entering a closed session to meet with legal counsel to receive legal advice concerning a real estate matter and New York State regulatory requirements. And as far as reordering of business, I'm thinking we should move resolution N up to be after the consent agenda, if that's acceptable to everyone. I see Jay Franklin is on the line. It'll still take us a while to get there. Are there any other resolutions that anybody would like to see reordered? Veronica.
Could we consider moving resolution P up, anticipating interest in it from the public?
Yes, absolutely. Also, that'll be after consent, which is going to take us a little while to get to tonight, but we will get there. Okay, next up is privilege of the floor. Privilege of the floor is a time when members of the public can come up and speak for up to 3 minutes. And if you do so, you need to fill out one of these blue forms. They're located in the back of the room. Just bring it right up to us. And if you sign one of these blue forms, you're agreeing to the following rules. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree not to raise my voice. I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. First person up is Laura Watkins.
Hi, good evening, guys. This is my second time coming here. The first time I was talking about the showers and the facility over at Cold Blue. Tonight I will be talking again about Cold Blue. I've been there a guest since the 26th of November. Since then, I have put numerous grievances in to Department of Social Services regarding several of their shelter workers for harassment, racial comments, stealing food from the homeless community that has been donated by several churches that go above and beyond, bringing food to us to make sure that we eat a good meal every night. In this past week, the homeless shelter has endured overrunning toilets of feces, urine, blood inside of sinks on top of toilet paper because they're allowing needles inside of the shelter. Myself and several other clients there have noticed people coming in with knives, beating people up because they're stealing other people's things. Shelter workers are not doing anything about this. Myself had just been privy to one of the shelter workers taking an effect in her own hands and having me arrested because she said I harassed her. But again, I put several grievances in about being harassed because of my smell, because of my overweightness, because how much I eat. That is not fair. That's dehumanizing myself and several other people there. I not only don't like to eat there no more, but don't want to be there. I'd rather sleep out on the streets than deal with the shelter workers there. It's not fair to be dehumanized throughout the time that I'm there and that I'm looking for housing consistently and being told no because I don't meet the requirements of double the amount of rent in my pay or not being able to pay my own rent. This is what our community has come to. A one-bedroom apartment is $2,400. One efficiency is $1,500. A room is $1,000. I don't meet those requirements. That's the reason why I'm still in the shelter. And to see that the workers are dehumanizing us and not treating us with any kind of respect. We're just a number to them. They don't care. And it's heartening to have my mental health diminished there and to have not only several people that I know and one person I do love to be called racial comments because he's black and he shouldn't act like an N-word, or to be dehumanized because he smells. Thank you.
Next up is Stephanie Redmond.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Redmond, town of Enfield. I'm here tonight because I hope that you will consider the resolution regarding the Cargill salt mine. And I think that it's important to sort of bring this into perspective. I think the Cargill salt mine is sort of out of sight, out of mind. And so I want to imagine a out-of-state company that is privately owned by billionaires coming into Tompkins County and developing an industrial site the size of the town of Enfield. That's how large this mine is. And during the 50 years of its expansion, not one time would we be asked to have a public hearing where individuals could go and have a public comment. And I think that there might be a reason for that. I think that if we actually did have a public hearing, that you might find that a lot of people locally do not think that we should jeopardize our water resources for the sake of an out-of-state corporation to get more money, for a billionaire family to have more profits. They should not be profiting from our communal resources. And so this has been going on for 50 years, and I think it's very we're overdue for the need for an EIS, a full environmental impact statement. And I also think that it's important to consider that Cargill has put the salt mine up for sale. So that means our time might be limited as to when we can hold Cargill accountable for the consequences of this mine. If they should abandon this mine, then what happens 20 years down the road if there is a collapse there and we all of a sudden find ourselves with a hydrogeologic connection to the mine? Cargill is gone at that point. So we need to ask for an environmental review, and we need to ask for a closure plan. We need to ask for a bond to be held by the state for future monitoring and possible remediation. I also think it's important to consider the workers there. They are not unionized, and I know it's not part of the administration or administrative process as far as an EIS is concerned to consider the workers there, but I think outside of that, we need to be advocating for these workers and promoting them getting a lifetime of health insurance, for example, significant stipend packages. These are part of our community members. And so yes, Cargill has been benefiting from our communal resource as far as the lake goes, but they've also been benefiting from our workforce, and they cannot just leave the area and not have their employees taken care of as well. So these are all issues that I think are really important for us to consider tonight, and I do hope you will consider this resolution. Thank you so much.
Stephanie, I want to let you know that we have a spot on our agenda also for elected officials to report on their town. That's coming up after the public privilege of the floor. So if you're interested at that time, you're welcome to come back to the mic and speak about Enfield. Thank you. Next up is John Dennis.
Good evening, legislators. It's a privilege to speak to you, and thank you so much for your public service. Regarding, just sort of adding on to Stephanie's concerns, 54 years, no EIS, but by contrast, American Rock Salt, a local company whose workforce is unionized, they have been required to do 2 EISs. And I think they're a safer mine because of it. So I think, you know, it is in favor of the workers at the Cargill mine. They do seem to be downsizing. They laid off their 3rd shift in October. I don't know if the mine continues to be for sale, but probably, you know, prospective buyers realize that they only have maybe until 2030 in terms of mineral resources under the lake. It's much more profitable to mine under a lake than under land. So I believe, right, and the reason for this resolution is regarding the flooding of the S3 zone under the lake. That's about 150 acres of abandoned salt mine on the 6th level. And unfortunately, Cargill cannot pump fully saturated brine. So the brine that will be pumped into this area over the next 15 years, if they're allowed to continue, is about 20 to 22% saturated, whereas fully saturated is 6%. So when we do the math, that's enough to dissolve about 16 small yielding pillars in the first 2 years, so we could see a mine collapse. It's possible. And the only other instance of a freshwater lake, you know, draining into a salt mine, that Lake Penior in Louisiana, that accident happened in 1980 due to a Texaco drilling rig. That lake has been saline ever since. So we do need to protect our resource. And as one former USGS scientist said in his letter to the DEC, a private company should not be allowed to self-assess. There need to be external experts. And, you know, Cargill might say, well, wait, we're paying for the DEC to have a third-party mining consultant, and that company, John T. Boyd, has been giving advice, but since the mine permit was amended in 2021, so that Cargill now manages that consultant. So it's a bit like the fox, you know, guarding the hen house. Previously, you know, that they paid for the consultant, but they did not manage it. So anyway, please do consider bringing this resolution to a vote. It's not harming Cargill in any way. They would pay for the EIS, but they would continue to mine. And anyway, thanks so much for your service, and it's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Next up, Brian Eden.
Good evening on a wintry evening. I've appeared here on several occasions during the past 8 years to discuss my concerns with the operations at Cayuga Salt Mine. Since many of the physical conditions were similar at both Retzoff and Cayuga mines, Marty Luster, our then Assembly rep, prevailed upon the Speaker of the Assembly to grant a legislative hearing on the cause of the Retzoff mine failure. Marty sat on the Assembly's ENCON committee, and without yet much community interest in this issue, he undertook this campaign for transparency, mostly on his own initiative. Today, every municipality from whom we solicited a comment formally adopted a resolution. 8 of 9 towns in Tompkins County, the Seneca County Board of Supervisors, the town of Aurora. Then we received support from our local environmental organizations, our New York State legislators, and several local scientists. Possibly this universal support for an EIS will persuade the DEC to seriously consider the legal and scientific support for our request. In 1998, the DEC agreed to acquire an EIS for the next permit renewal and requested that Cargill provide one. Cargill argued that the DEC lacked the statutory authority to regulate the mine. Why the DEC ultimately reneged on this promise is not in the administrative record, possibly desiring to avoid litigation with Cargill. DEC and Cargill entered a stipulation agreement in 2000 where Cargill agreed to provide more information while continuing to maintain that the DEC lacked jurisdiction. Cargill prepared an enhanced environmental assessment. This was not a secret proceeding, no scoping, no public comment. DEC issued a draft permit renewal, and the local community appealed that finding because they weren't able to get any of the information that was provided to the DEC by Cargill. The senior ALJ found that much of what was requested was necessary for a meaningful public comment. Cargill appealed, and 2 years later, the Assistant DEC Commissioner ruled that most of the information sought by the public were trade secrets. The resolves in the resolution before you paralleled those of the county resolution you supported in November 2023 with the addition of the S3 issue. What will happen if we are successful? The DEC can rescind the neg deck, issue a pause deck, and thus require an EIS. Nothing much will change for a very long time, but we shall have a formal seat at the table for the first time. Those representing the public interest will be able to participate in a proceeding that may influence the DEC's decision-making, or possibly not. Cargill could initiate interlocutory appeals to the DEC or file an Article 78 with the New York courts. The salt mine's future depends far more on market forces than on the outcome of the EIS. The findings of an EIS are very unlikely to result in a permit denial. An EIS may add conditions to the existing permit to reduce the mining risk to the lake and may lead to the preparation of a reclamation plan for the beneath the lake portions of the mine and a more adequate surety bond. My expiration date has long passed. I hope that no county legislator has to hear me before them again on this issue. Thank you.
Next up, Zach Wynn.
Good evening. There was a fire in Jungle 2 behind Lowe's last week. I sent you a photograph. It is not a surprise that there has been another fire in this area where people are trying to stay warm in their makeshift dwellings that amount to tinder boxes. I'd appreciate it if you could find out why the city continues to allow this series of hazardous encampments to remain, especially in light of the extreme cold outside. Someone burning or freezing to death is easy to imagine. I know there has been a new committee created by the city to look into these encampments. I think action is required. I again request that Tompkins County Environmental Health cite the city of Ithaca for conditions in Jungle 2 and mandate a cleanup. I understand a few members of the legislature recently toured the Asteri building. I am curious if you could discuss what you saw. Someone I know who lives there has told me things have improved somewhat. Despite this, when I am leaving and returning from work on the bus at Green Street, more often than not, I see IPD and IFD vehicles at the building. Today they were pulling up to the building as I disembarked from the bus. I've sent you some photos. I'd like to know if any of you have been able to get a solid idea of how many people have died in the building and how much it is costing taxpayers to continuously send first responders to the Asteri. On the 20th of this month, a man from Chicago was arrested with 2 ounces of methamphetamine and an amount of crack cocaine. As meth is often sold in 1/16 of an ounce, 2 ounces is quite a lot, and it is unlikely this meth was purely for personal consumption. This is only the most recent incident where a large amount of meth was seized. I think it is clear the county has a major methamphetamine problem. I have previously suggested the county create a methamphetamine task force to mirror the responsibilities of the opioid task force, or to expand the purview of the opioid task force task force to include methamphetamine. I still believe this is an idea worth considering. I am curious if there's any specific effort on the part of the county to educate people about the presence and harm of methamphetamine in the community or to combat the drug, apart from what is being done by law enforcement. I don't know if any of you have ever had the opportunity to speak with someone who is on meth, but I can tell you from my experience of watching a friend gradually succumb to the drug, it erodes a person's mind to the point that they can no longer function in society. Meth is a drug that does not allow for casual use. Anyone consuming it is on the path to insanity and death. It is also unlikely that the drug plays a role in some of the mental health incidents that occur regularly in the area, including at the Asteri. As the drug crisis continues to evolve along with the county's attempts to combat it, I have forwarded you a link to a podcast regarding the potential for addiction to be treated with a drug called Ibogaine. It is about 2 hours long, and I know that is a major time investment, but if you could please take the time to listen to it, I think you would have a better understanding of this drug's unique ability to free people from the biological underpinnings of drug addiction and the brain damage it inspires. While Ibogaine itself is currently illegal and federally scheduled in the same way as heroin or LSD, it is clear there is a major potential for this drug to be of benefit to those suffering from addiction and post-traumatic stress disorder, and for it to become a powerful tool to assist people to recover from addiction. Tompkins County could begin to open the door to this therapy being made available to people in need and offer a real alternative to Suboxone, may I?
Please.
And other synthetic drug substitutes that serve to make addicts a client of the pharmaceutical industry for life. With millions being spent annually to combat addiction with little success, it is worth investigating. Thank you.
Next up, Anna Vergari.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Vergari, and I'm the outreach coordinator at Reach Medical. It's my first in-person meeting, so I'm honored to be here. Thank you. I'm here tonight to discuss continued concerns about the lack of communication and collaboration between our local DSS and the community partners providing supportive services in our community. Tonight, I'm focusing on THA. As we've navigated the implementation of a new Code Blue space and the missed opportunities to leverage evidence-based approaches into supporting folks experiencing unsheltered homelessness, we've heard the same response many times. It was a timing issue and we were under pressure, which I really do understand. But we also hear that Code Blue isn't a place for linkage to services. It's just a place to be warm overnight. I've shared in this space before that getting THA is incredibly difficult, and implored you all to look further into that. And I'm still concerned about that. But tonight, I need to highlight concerns for life after obtaining THA. The single thing we've heavily referenced as being the bridge to real support in this community. The conditions at the contracted hotels for folks who have THA are declining, and I don't just mean the mold or the cockroaches or the broken amenities. I mean the treatment of folks in these spaces is dehumanizing and deeply concerning. Individuals and families seeking help and stability are instead met with judgment, disrespect, and sometimes outright hostility from the staff in these environments. In preparing this tonight, I had to truly think about how to share experiences and examples in an honest and impactful way, with also being as vague as possible, because I know people are afraid of retaliation. It's a huge fear for our folks. So some examples are folks in these spaces are being threatened by staff with the misuse of Narcan. Narcan should be administered if someone's not responsive and not breathing. But at our contracted hotels, folks are hearing things like, if you even stumble through my lobby, I'll Narcan you. We've heard consistent reports of racially driven threats of calling CPS. We've even received a report of a person who had a serious medical emergency after they had a verbal altercation with the staff. We have a really hard time supporting people in these environments because the rules are very inconsistent and rooted in favoritism. Think about that. Threats of misusing life-threatening tools like Narcan, racially charged threats of involving CPS. This is not only unethical, but dangerous and traumatizing. We talk about THA as an answer in this community. And instead, people are met with the actions that perpetuate harm and systematic inequities that further erode the trust in the systems that are designed to help them. Tonight, I'm asking for your attention and action in addressing these conditions. While DSS is overseeing these contracted spaces, they need to implement real oversight, systems for grievances, and plans on how to follow up on concerns. They need to mandate trauma. Can I finish? Please. Okay. They need to mandate trauma-informed training and supervision for all contracted partners. They have to have they just have to start building a relationship and collaborating with partners and welcome feedback. And lastly, they need to create a safe place for our community members to report mistreatment without the fear of retaliation. Thank you.
The last blue card I have for tonight is Amanda Kirschgessner. If there was anybody else that wanted to speak, now would be the time to fill one of these out and let us know. Amanda Kirschgessner.
Good evening, and I love to see you giving an award to Pastor Christina Culver Day. I'd love to even more see you there for lunch or dinner sometime. That would be really awesome. And I'm happy to accompany you if you're afraid of going alone. In regards to the salt mine, are we ready to return to ash and cinder? I'm not sure what the solution is, folks, but, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. And it's going to be expensive either way. So I guess we need to get down to business. But more importantly, I want to talk about the Code Blue allocations. When you guys moved so fleet-footed and released those 10K to be backfilled by Code Blue, and then nothing materialized to help people connect to showers and bus passes, we clearly have a problem. And I'm not sure if moving to have the commissioner of DSS be elected, or maybe even dismantling DSS into smaller departments. I don't know if you've ever managed 13 different departments, but clearly it's not efficient and people are getting lost left and right. I could introduce you to half a dozen tonight or more if you were interested. I think it's important to think about, perhaps, as much as I deplore the idea of exploring public-private partnerships, there are loads of nonprofits that would benefit from having access to resources where they could dispense bus passes and maybe even help individuals get memberships to gyms, because DSS is not doing it. And I understand, certain people might have certain conditions and we can't let them near children's programs. Okay, but where's the creative thinking? Because people are so constrained by their roles and their job titles. There's half a dozen gyms downtown and you can get a membership for $25 a month or less. There are very accessible solutions. For some reason, they're not materializing. And I'm not sure if it's because of everybody just staying in their lane, laziness, depletion, you name it. But I know that there's a load of volunteers. I know that people who are actively seeking solutions and to advocate for themselves and soliciting donations from within the shelter, they're getting admonished and vilified for it. And they're just doing their best to provide some degree of self-agency and bring in resources that improve the quality of the experience of actually being stuck at the Code Blue shelter. I do love Zach Wynn's idea of doing ibogaine treatments here. We got to try something, right? We've already determined that handing people syringes in safe places to shoot up isn't really solving the issue. Let's be innovative, please. Thank you.
Thank you all to the members of the public who came to speak tonight. Next up is municipal officials' privilege of the floor. Stephanie, did you want to speak about the town of Enfield tonight?
Sure.
Stephanie Redmond, Supervisor, Town of Enfield.
Well, first, I just wanted to thank you all because you've been advocating for a couple of grants that our town has received 2 years in a row. One is a beautification grant, and the other one is a trails and parks grant. And both of them, although they're not huge grants, they've made significant impact for our town. So I'd really like to thank you for that. We have an adorable basketball court that's in now and a skate park that's getting done. So we're really excited to see those move forward. And then otherwise, as far as the town of Enfield updates, we're working on looking at our comprehensive plan. We found that it doesn't really need a whole lot of updates. It's still pretty relevant, but we're looking at our action items and seeing if any of those we've completed or moved forward or need to reassess. And we're also reviewing our subdivision regulations and our site plan review laws. And our big questions with those, which we've been been asking our residents is how they feel about the development pressure that we've been experiencing in Enfield, and how we want to move forward with things like protecting our water resources and lot development size and things like that. So we're trying to come up with creative ways to engage our residents, which I'm sure you guys all struggle with too, and try to get some input on these. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Stephanie? Well, thank you for coming. You and anybody else from your town, elected officials, are welcome anytime. Next up, Pierre St. Perez, Representative, Ithaca, City of Ithaca Common Council.
Hey there, good to see you all again. Less people than usual today. Not that much developing in the city right now, though I will say the Lieutenant Governor did come to our Martin Luther King Day celebration at GIAC, which I think that's a very good thing. My understanding is that that went well. Additionally, as was noted, the city is forming a advisory committee to address homelessness issues. The city committee is going to be chaired by Deputy City Manager Dominic Recchio and contain 3 members of Common Council. I can list the membership if you guys would like. It's also available. Actually, Anna Vergari from Reach Medical is on that committee, I will note. So it should be a good group of people who will be able to work towards finding solutions and making stuff happen. Yeah. Hit me with any questions you got.
Questions or comments for Pierre? All right.
Dan?
Thank you very much. Oh. Did somebody have
Hello,
one?
Dan?
Rich.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
There it goes. There, I raised my hand. It wasn't working. Thanks for coming in. If you could go through the list. I am curious who's on that group. Thanks.
I have it pulled up. I was expecting someone would want me to read off the list. So it's going to be chaired by Dominic Recchio, Deputy City Manager, and include Alderperson Kayla Matos, Alderperson David Shapiro, and Alderperson Patrick Keel. It will also include our Encampment Response Coordinator, Nels Bond, Director of the IURA, Chief Kelly from the IPD, Liddy Berger from the Human Services Coalition, as noted, Anna Vergari from Reach Medical, and that is the membership.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Pierre? Thank you very much for joining us.
Always happy to.
Next up is legislator privilege of the floor. Randy.
Yeah, I just, in Enfield, there had been a couple of fires last year, and they were related to NYSEG. And so a couple people called me about it, and I talked to a few people here as well, Michael Stitley, about it and how the response was. The response was pretty bad, actually, and they lost a building on Hines Road. And so somehow this gentleman, Eric Verfuss, V-E-R-F-U-S-S, from NYSEG, he's a municipal and community relations person, contacted me. And so I'm going to meet with him on Friday to talk about how they respond to things and why it took them 4 hours to show up for a fire. So, and what happened was electric was down by a tree, caught onto some property, and they needed the fire people need the electric turned off so they could respond to the fire, and that didn't happen. So they had to watch the building burn. So, anyways, I just wanted to let people know I'm doing that.
Thank you. Mike Sigler.
It was asked, so I feel like we should respond. I mean, Dan, myself, and Greg Mezzi. Am I missing somebody?
No. Shauna.
Shauna.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shauna. See, that's why I asked. We did go visit the Asteri building. We met, fortunately, we met with the Asteri people too, the managers of the property, the Vincino Group. I'll get to that in a second. We really met, the primary meeting was with the continuum of care that operates out of that building, and they operate like the 20 different units. And if I say anything incorrect here, Dan or Shauna, please, feel free to correct me.
I'm making a list.
Thanks so much. And it was an interesting experience because I walked in with not a negative attitude toward the community or the continuum of care. I really placed some of the blame there. And after the meeting, I felt that that was kind of misplaced. I felt that they, having a presence on site, really were looking after those 20 units, and that those people were getting services that they needed. But there's a lot of other, it's 100% occupied, which I find remarkable. And there are a lot of people in there that may also need services that aren't getting them because they're not part of that group of 20 or 41 apartments, I think it is. So that was something we do need to talk to Vincino Group about, and that was a very short meeting. That was more introductory. I will say it was an enlightening experience for the simple fact that we're sitting there waiting to get in because you got to buzz in and there's a guy there and he pulls the door open, breaking the door. I mean, literally, it happens right in front of us. So we're standing there and we're like, well, yeah, we'll go in. And that gave us access to the entire building. I mean, we walked right to the elevator and met the person who was coming to meet us. Then, we went and looked at there's a space you can rent up on the corner of the building. And it's beautiful. I mean, it overlooks the city and you can rent it for birthday parties or whatever if you live in the building. But coming out, maintenance of the building was an issue. And I'm looking there and there's a big puddle of water that is running down one of the hallways. And I'm like, well, I mean, you brought us up here to look at this. And I'm curious, is that doesn't seem like something you would want us to see, is a giant puddle of water. And well, the maintenance hasn't gotten to it yet. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that, but that seems like something I would have probably addressed a little bit quicker. And then obviously 2 hours after we leave, there's a stabbing on the 6th floor. So this is something we are going to have to, I think, tackle as a county and working with the city to see, we have to make that building safer. And we are going to have to work with Vincino Group to do that. So that was the experience that we had there. But I will say the continuum of care, I thought, presented itself rather well when it was talking about the people in its program. And obviously, please add, Shauna or Dan, whatever you would like.
I do just want to, so it was Tompkins Community Action, not the continuum of care.
Sorry.
So I just want to make sure we got the right organization.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Shauna.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I found it really interesting and definitely informative, the work that TCA is doing as far as the care management. And I think one of the things that I learned is that many of the people that are receiving care management in that building are not the ones that we're reading about that are necessarily, I don't want to say like part of the problem, but are the ones that are engaging in some of the criminal concerns. I believe they said they have a caseload of, was it 40 individuals?
41,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, around 40, and then the other 140 apartments do not have care management. And so it's either people that choose not to engage in services or people that maybe don't even need services. So I think, whenever we're talking about those people, the ones that are actually engaging in services are the ones that are seeking help, and it's the other 140 people that could be living in that building, that hopefully someday we'll get them into services and out of, quote unquote, the system. I think the other thing that was very interesting, and I don't think it was, it was something worth noticing, was the fact that whenever we were there, the developers walked in the door. And of course, they have not really had a presence in that building. And so I don't think it was, of no consequence that they were there. With that said, there are a lot of things that need to be corrected about that building. I think they heard us loud and clear that they need to figure out the door situation. It sounds like the door is too big and the magnets are too small, and and, quote unquote, they're working on it. But I do think there has to be some accountability there, and agree with Mike.
Other legislator privilege of the floor. Randy.
I just want to, we celebrated Martin Luther King Day yesterday, and so I took some time to read some of his sermons and some of his speeches and stuff, and very, very motivational. Another person who was assassinated. But I want to, I read one of his things, it's the shortest one I read. He's got so much online to read, but I thought this one was appropriate. When somebody asked him if he was thinking about running for president in 1968, he goes, "Well, I must say it's very kind of you to express such concern and make such a request. Now, I do not feel that I'm presidential timber." I thought that was quite interesting. "I am committed to trying to do this job of civil rights and this job of building, wherever we can, more opposition to the war in Vietnam. This would certainly take all of my time. I would rather think of myself as one trying desperately to be the conscience of all the political parties rather than being a political candidate." And I think that's still appropriate. So.
Mike Lane.
Thanks for that, Randy. Yesterday was Martin Luther King's birthday and our holiday. And we have reasons to be thankful that we can think back on his words, all of them, and take time to remember that through peaceful means, much has been accomplished, thanks to him, and much more needs to be accomplished out there. It was also the day that we inaugurated a new president. When we are elected, we each take an oath to support the Constitution of the United States. Whether we're legislators, state legislators, governors, senators, police officers, members of the armed services, we don't take allegiance to any one particular person or group of wealthy individuals. We take an oath to the Constitution, which is developed over 250 years. And not just the original Constitution, but all the amendments to it as well. When the President of the United States raised his hand yesterday and took an oath to preserve and defend the Constitution, some of us gasped, knowing what had happened in the previous 4 years. America has processes. It has 3 branches of government, equal branches of government. And we're not here to have an all-purpose executive. We have a Congress and we have our courts. To hear words about, oh, let's forget about the Native Americans and rename the mountain Mount McKinley, because he was a great president. And, you know, if we think back and look at history, that was the jingoism of the Spanish-American War. We hear about rounding up millions, and that's not my words, that's their words, millions of immigrants and exporting them. And saying that people who are born on our soil are not American citizens? That's not what our Constitution says. That's not the Constitution that we have said we support and we will defend. We heard that we're going to take back the Panama Canal. Well, for heaven's sakes, you know, Yes, we built it, but let's not forget the French started it, and we just finished it. And yes, we had it for a lot of years, and we protected it. But, you know, Panama is a country, and they are deserving of the rights to also protect their countries. Well, we heard more about Greenland, a protectorate of a small country called Denmark. Well, what kind of a country, what kind of a great bully country goes out and does things like this and says, well, we're going to take them back no matter what Denmark says, or we're going to make Canada our 51st state. This bullyism is not American values. It is a situation that must give us all pause. I said before, we will be a loyal opposition, those that are not happy with the outcome of the election, but that does not mean we will do nothing. And remember, a wiser man than I once said, all that is necessary for the forces of evil to win the world is for enough good persons to do nothing. And we will not do nothing.
Veronica.
Thanks. I guess building off that, well, first, Randy reminded me I went to a singing event on Saturday, and one of the things incorporated was a Martin Luther King quote I hadn't heard that goes, "We are tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly," which I'm glad I'll remember forever now because we sang it dozens of times. I had hoped to be able to meet this meeting like first full day of a new federal government with reinforcement and strengthening of some of the local protections we have here against for marginalized and minoritized people, essentially, in the wake of protections at the federal level getting stripped away. And I want to say out loud, I do intend to work on that between now and our next meeting with my fellow electeds, anyone who's interested, not just legislators, but our sheriff and DA and county clerk, if she wants. But I guess I do want to remind folks that Tompkins County has, both within our organization and as directives to our staff, instructions in place to put a little bit of padding between us and, in particular, immigrants or anyone who might be targeted as such, and in particular, people seeking reproductive care, including those maybe coming from other places. We've got some resolutions you can look up, basically declaring to, as much as within our power, which isn't much, but it's something, to at least not make Tompkins County a more dangerous place in any of those situations, and not to actively cooperate with hostile forces trying to take away such rights from people. But of course, it could all be better. I also wanted to thank everyone for who came and spoke tonight. Privilege of the floor, a lot of good thoughts. Also in the report back from visiting the Sterry building made me think of, there's at least another building I know with a bunch of low-income housing that is not all the same problems, but the questionable maintenance schedule, I would say, is one of them. And there seems to be maybe an overall normalization of, yeah, this isn't working, but like we're gonna get to it, that I would never fly in a luxury apartment building, to my knowledge. So it's a big problem we got to address. And I guess I also bring that up because it doesn't there's not necessarily anything like uniquely weird or bad going on at one hotspot building, which is a good and bad thing. You wish you could like fix the one weird bad problem, but it's systemic. And I think we need to make some big systemic changes, some of which there's some of that work I know going on here at the county, but could be a lot more. I think Amanda's right when saying that people, I know for me, tend to stay in our lanes a lot, too often to a detrimental effect on actual humans' well-being. And my final thing on an unrelated note is that the Tompkins County Soil and Water Conservation District is doing a tree sale this year for the first time in 10 years. So if you'd like to order trees, just look up Tompkins County Soil and Water Tree Sale. You can order by March 25th. They're like little baby seedlings you get this high, very skinny in bundles. Enjoy.
Any other legislator privilege of the floor? Okay. So I have quite a bit to go through tonight. I'm going to do what we call the state of the county, look ahead to some of the things we might see in 2025. I'm going to go through all the committees and who's chairing them. I'm going to go through the chair's appointments, and then I have a few more comments to make. It's going to be pretty long, so I will not be insulted if you get up and go to the bathroom, get a drink, or get a snack. I will start by repeating exactly what I said last year at this time. The state of the county is excellent, and at the same time, there are plenty of areas that need a lot of attention and need a lot of help. We are doing a lot, and there's a lot more to do. Last year, the county legislature passed a resolution to allocate $50,000 to study the potential for a county-wide living wage, including its potential benefits and negative impacts and the legal issues involved. That study will likely be starting in 2025. In 2025, we will begin a process to look at reorganization of the Office of Human Rights. This process will include input from legislators, staff, members of the Human Rights Commission, and community members. The issues surrounding homelessness took up much of our time, attention, and resources in 2024. Unfortunately, this will likely continue into 2025. We will likely be starting the Code Blue cold weather shelter process from scratch once again in 2025. Hopefully, we will have a not-for-profit agency to run it for us, and that will take a lot of the burden off the county. We should also expect significant progress on the quote-unquote permanent shelter development process, ideally in collaboration with the not-for-profit agency also. This work goes hand in hand with our imminent acquisition of a property on Cherry Street in the city of Ithaca. We have just hired a consultant to help guide us through the various steps of design, financing, permitting, and development of this property. The consultant, along with our not-for-profit agencies, community members, and those with lived experience with homelessness, will work to develop this property to help meet the needs of our homeless population. We should also expect significant progress on the Center of Government building this year. We won't see any actual building yet, but we should get much further along in our planning and design process, and we may even see some clearing of the site. We also have an upcoming capital project with our public safety building that we hope to see progress on this year. Again, we won't see any actual building yet, but hopefully we will come out of 2025 with a clearer picture of that project than we have coming into this year. The issue of enforcing cannabis sales law will be coming to us soon, as New York State is putting the enforcement requirement on counties. What do we want in our law? What resources are necessary for enforcement? What increased costs to the county should we expect? Stay tuned as we figure all this out. The county applied for a New York State broadband internet grant last year. We were supposed to hear from the state in early summer of 2024. Then again, in the early fall, we were told we would hear something soon. We have not heard yet. Assuming we do get the grant, The rollout of that project to reach every unserved address in Tompkins County will begin in 2025. Some towns in Tompkins County pay a lot for municipal ambulance service, and those ambulances provide benefit even to the towns that don't pay for it. The way to fix this inequity might be a countywide ambulance tax. The Tompkins County Council of Governments wants the county to begin exploring this idea. There are proposals afloat to expand the number of members of the Industrial Development Agency and also to designate a seat for a school board member, and we may see some action on that in 2025. Some of the more inward-facing initiatives that the county is likely to tackle in 2025 are less flashy, but are central to how our county government operates. Some of these inward-facing initiatives include exploration of changes in our procurement process, a further examination of the future of the airport, an exploration of how to initiate more reuse of materials within county government operations, department head retreats with legislators, initiating measurement of equity indicators in each county department, evaluating our advisory board appointment process, considering alternate budget development processes, and further vigorous debate about understanding our fund balance, how it is calculated, and its role in our budget process. Before I go on to talk about our committees, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we work in partnership with other entities in Tompkins County as we do our work. We are blessed to have numerous not-for-profit organizations doing great work in our county. We magnify each other's work. We are all in this together. We also have a strong partner in the city of Ithaca. We are a separate government from the city of Ithaca, but Tompkins County government literally lives within the city. I believe that our relationship with the city is the best it's been in years. I can also say the same about the county's relationship with our partners on East and South Hills, Cornell University and Ithaca College. The Facilities and Infrastructure Committee focuses on roads, bridges, buildings, Tompkins Consolidated Area Transit, and more. Chairing this committee this year will be Lee Shurtleff. When Shauna Black chaired the county legislature, she set up a temporary downtown facilities special committee to focus mostly on the future center of government building. We will continue this committee with Randy Brown chairing, and this committee will meet only as needed. Government Operations is the committee that focuses on internal matters to the county. Amanda Champion will chair this committee. The Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee keeps track of two of our most important resources, our staff and our money. Mike Lane will chair this committee in 2025. Workforce, Diversity, and Inclusion is the other committee that focuses on our staff. The Workforce, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, chaired by Veronica Pillar, is the guardian of our Tompkins County Diversity Statement, which reads, Tompkins County government centers diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are committed to the empowerment of employees and residents to dismantle systemic barriers that inhibit inclusive governance and the provision of government service to all. The Public Safety Committee of the county includes the Sheriff's Department, the Department of Emergency Response, the District Attorney's Office, Alternatives to Incarceration, and the Assigned Counsel program, known in other places as the Public Defender. The Public Safety Committee will be chaired by Rich John. Tompkins County is blessed with a beautiful and healthy environment. Making sure the county does its part to keep it that way is the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, chaired by Ann Corman. The Housing and Economic Development Committee deals with economic issues and also with the issues of homelessness and housing, and will be chaired by Greg Mezzi. The departments who report to the Health and Human Services Committee contain the largest number of county employees. This is representative of both the needs that exist in our community and also the value we place on taking care of our residents. Chairing this committee will be Travis Brooks. The Community Recovery Fund was a program the Tompkins County Legislature invented to distribute some of the federal money we received during the COVID pandemic. There are still a few projects that will continue this year and next, so the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee will still need to exist. We will meet only as needed. We are bringing back a committee from the past, the Tompkins Intergovernmental Relations Committee, TIGER. The job of this committee will be to stay in touch with other branches of government and to formalize our lobbying efforts. Chairing this committee will be Shauna Black. Here in local government, we focus a lot on process, procedures, and policies. This is necessary for the good functioning of government. However, we must never lose sight of the reason for all this. We are here to help provide a good quality of life for both our residents and for our staff. So here's another reminder that we are all in this together, that with effort we can lift each other up, and that government has a strong role to play in this. And now I'm going to go through the list of chairs' appointments. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'm going to go through the list of chairs' appointments. These are effective immediately. To the Chamber of Commerce, Greg Mezzi. To Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County, Randy Brown. To the Ethics Advisory Board as its chair, Rich John. To the Tompkins Center for History and Culture, the Governance Committee, Amanda Champion. To the Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance, Terry Carroll. To the Cayuga Lake Watershed Municipal Organization, Darby Kiley, with Ann Corman as the alternate. To the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, as the chair of the committee, Veronica Pillar. To the Ithaca Metropolitan Planning Organization, ITCTC Policy Committee, Mike Lane, with Randy Brown as the alternate. We have special negotiating committees that may not have to meet this year, but we decided to appoint the committees anyway in case they are needed for one-time or short-term meetings. To the Corrections Unit, Shauna Black and Lee Shurtleff. To the CSEA White Collar Unit, Shauna Black and Mike Lane. To Road Patrol and the Civil Division, Shauna Black and Rich John. And to the CSEA Blue Collar Division, Shauna Black and Ann Corman. To the Ithaca Area Economic Development Board of Directors, Randy Brown and Greg Mezzi. To the Ithaca Area Economic Development Executive Committee, Katie Borgella and Greg Mezzi. To the Tompkins County Council of Governments, Dan Klein, with Greg Mezzi being the alternate. To the Industrial Development Agency, Rich John as chair, Deborah Dawson as member, and Greg Mezzi as member. And then finally, I just had a few items that I wanted to mention that happened recently. I had also written about our visit to Asteri. The only thing I'll add that hasn't been said already was that it helped me personally understand a little more about what supportive housing looks like and feels like and what it means. Let's see. Also, Legislator Travis Brooks and myself, along with Mayor Rob Cantelmo and Ithaca City Police Chief Thomas Kelly, attended a community meeting of about 20 neighbors at Nate's Floral Estates. We were there to discuss the county's plans for a homeless shelter on Cherry Street. There was some expression of support for the project from the residents, and also a lot of concerns brought forward. It's clear to me that honest communication and information went a long way towards making people feel more comfortable with the project and that this work will be ongoing. Also last week, legislators Shauna Black, Mike Lane, and myself attended a meeting at Tompkins Cortland Community College, along with legislators from Cortland County. We heard a report from TC3 staff with good news about their enrollment and about their finances. 2 students told us their stories, which put a face on the good work that TC3 is doing. We heard about TC3's intentions to update their capital plan, and then we got a tour to see some of the needs and successes. And then finally, we are scheduled to meet with Assemblymember Anna Kellis this Thursday at 10:30. At one point, I'd sent out to you an incorrect date, so please make sure that it is correct in your calendar. It's this coming Thursday at 10:30. I don't have a lot of people signed up for that meeting yet. I encourage you to attend if you're able. And then also, we'll be meeting with New York State Senator Leo Webb. That is next Thursday, January 30th at 11 a.m. Thank you for your patience as I read through all those items. Next up, we have 2024 County Departmental Highlights from Deputy County Administrator Bridget Nugent. Welcome, Bridget.
Thank you very much, Chair Klein. Let me just get situated here. If you could just give me a moment.
Got it.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I very much look forward to sharing with you the 2024 achievements from all of our departments within the county. I'll actually be sharing this honor with our other Deputy County Administrator, Norma Jane, who will be sharing her portion virtually. As you will see from the submissions from our county's nearly 30 departments, our dedicated employees continue to go above and beyond to serve our constituents, often in the face of challenges, scarce resources, and significant transitions. Typically, you would receive this annual presentation from the county administrator, and next to me is our new county administrator, Corsa Comfy. But I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our former administrator, Lisa Holmes, whose steady leadership over the past 3 years enabled much of the success you will hear about tonight. As we move through the presentation, I will highlight just 2 or 3 bullets from each slide, but please take some time to review them in full. There is quite a bit there. So without further ado, we will launch right in to our first department, which is county administration. So as you're all intimately familiar, county administration led the efforts to adopt the county's first strategic operations plan and also transitioned all of the county departments to a key performance indicator reporting system from the previously results-based accountability framework. We successfully concluded contract negotiations with corrections and white collar with current and up-to-date contractual agreements with all 4 bargaining units in place.
Dear God, is she gonna read them all?
I'm sorry, was there a question?
Oh. No, I'm sorry.
No problem. And we also successfully obligated the $19.6 million in ARPA funds. Further from county administration, we developed and launched our new county website. We centralized countywide safety and security initiatives, developing a countywide security manager position with on-site security staff. And underneath the auspices of county administration, the Community Justice Center successfully launched a community healing mural project, as well as several resource hubs across the county to serve constituents in rural communities. Moving on to the airport. So the airport maintenance staff was included to be full-time county employees to cover contracted staff. The airport business strategic plan was finalized, and there was an announcement of twice daily flights returning to Dulles beginning in March 2025. Just a few of the accomplishments from the airport this year. Within the Department of Assessment, this was the 25th consecutive year of maintaining a uniform percentage of market value for all properties on the assessment roll. The total assessed value rose $2.29 billion to a total county valuation of just above $18.4 billion. And the department is prepared to launch to a conversion to a new state-of-the-art database approved in the budget with an anticipated go-live date of July 1, 2027. Within the Office for the Aging, this department hosted their first in-person Older Americans Month annual luncheon since 2019. They had several staff members complete trainings to the Center for Aging and Disability Research at Boston University. They spoke with 652 clients at 83 different outreach events and grew their subscribers to their newsletter. Further, their long-term care ombudsman program provided 6,517 contacts of information and assistance and 822 routine or complaint-related facility visits across 22 facilities. They also continued their age-friendly Center for Excellence planning efforts with partners. In the assigned council department, this department saw renewal of major state grant funding for program activities, providing over $2.5 million through 2027. They have been very successful in the recruitment of additional panel attorneys, as well as internal staff to the department, ensuring ongoing departmental activities at a high level. And they continue to engage in the ongoing use of supportive services and training, resulting in significant positive legal results for program clients. Within the Board of Elections staff procured and implemented the use of new clear ballot voting machines. They trained nearly 300 poll workers on the machines and how to work with voters, increased the number of polling places from 18 to 23, ran 2 countywide elections, and you can see the significant increase in numbers, processing over 7,000 voter registrations, processing over 12,000 voter registration changes, with currently 61,843 active voters in Tompkins County, which is a new record. Within our county clerk's office in the Department of Motor Vehicles, they have advanced their goals of a paperless office by increasing e-recording of land records and e-filing of court records. They've assisted customers with real ID and enhanced licenses prior to the federal deadline for air travel requirements. And they have been consistently rated between 95% and 100% approval by customers using their happy or not machine, which is a pretty big deal for a Department of Motor Vehicles, may I add. The clerk of the legislature. So the legislature and its standing and special committees held approximately 145 public meetings, adopted over 300 resolutions, 5 local laws, made approximately 96 advisory board appointments, as well as updated 6 advisory board bylaws. That followed in an informal audit of 45 advisory board records. They've also worked to update advisory boards to update all bylaws and bringing them into compliance, and have begun setting up and training for the move to a new meeting management software. Within the county attorney's office, they have provided legal advice and representation to the legislature, as well as all departments, including a number of matters, which are listed there. They have represented or overseen representation of the county in over 20 civil litigation matters pending in state and federal courts, handled approximately 50 active family court matters, and processed approximately 300 FOIL requests in 2024. And the Department of Emergency Response. 2024 saw the implementation of the county-wide EMS program, consisting of 3 basic life support fly cars stationed throughout the county, the completion and the opening of the backup 911 center on Pine Tree Road in partnership with Cornell University. Renovations have started for the primary 911 center at Brown Road, and they've also introduced a peer support program, providing mental health support to local first responders. Within our facilities department, they have the successful completion of improvements in record time to the former Key Bank building for the Code Blue Emergency Shelter. They've completed design of phase 2 of the Green Facilities Capital Project, as well as the Public Safety Building Short-Term Improvements Capital Project. Further projects included the Masonry Restoration Project at the main courthouse, Old Jail, and Daniel D. Tompkins building, and a substantial completion of the facility's cold storage building project. This is obviously together with the selection of Holt Architects to move forward the Center of Government building project. Within our finance department, the purchasing unit attended training and participated in the setup of a new OpenGov procurement software. The treasury unit conducted outreach to owners of 159 parcels in pre-foreclosure, 67 that went into foreclosure, and processing 9 parcels that went to public auction. Worked with the county attorney to revise the foreclosure processes, as well as work to maximize interest earnings. The payroll unit processed 659 retro payments totaling over $3 million for corrections, white collar, and confidential management contracts, as well as over 27,000 biweekly payroll checks. The accounts payable unit processed over 21,500 weekly payments, and the accounting unit assisted with revising and creating administrative policies, continuing work on implementation of new government accounting standards, and developed a more efficient process for the monthly sales tax distribution and reporting, along with significant other improvements to processes within the department. And with that, I believe I will turn it over to Norma Jane to take us through the rest of the departments. Norma.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you. Yes, we had a lot of work that's taken place over this past year. I wanted to also thank Lisa for her leadership in 2024. We won our opportunity, and we so look forward to working with Corsa. In 2025, we were so happy to see that he keeps coming back every day. So the highway, over 170 miles of county roads were maintained in 2024, 24.2 miles paved, 53 miles surfaced and treated, and 96.9 miles striped. Also, there's 2,650 feet of culvert pipe and so on as listed here. Within the oversight of the Highway Department is the Department of Weights and Measures. The director visited 187 establishments and inspected 1,704 devices and implemented price accuracy program auditing on 36 establishments. For Human Resources, they participated in the State Civil Service Help Initiative with 105 titles approved, 88 appointments made. The department held 114 civil service examinations for 430 candidates. The department worked to add benefit program options by adding life insurance, critical illness, accident, and hospital indemnity coverage for eligible employees. They conducted administrative searches for the county administrator, county attorney, budget director, and deputy director of workforce development. The team processed 292 new hires and reviewed and approved 4,700 employment applications. There were 165 employees recognized for milestone years in 2024, and the Human Resource Office hosted an employee picnic with over 550 attendees. Finally, 20 supervisors, 17 county and 3 city, completed a 6-module Supervisors for Success program. The county provided resources for training, development for 58 individual requests across 21 departments. And the Office of Human Rights, the office authored the letter Turning the Tide on Hate and Racism in Tompkins County is a project for all of us, which was co-signed by over 100 individuals. It also produced and publicly premiered the documentary, Are We There Yet? A Compassionate View of Contemporary Migration. The Your Voice and Your Vote Civic Engagement Coalition held its 2nd annual Democracy Fest in August and co-hosted the pre-election event Come Together, which highlighted the power of voting, criminal justice reform, and the rights of women and other marginalized groups. The department sponsored municipal programming events and supported community celebrations and cultural events. For ITS, the department implemented major infrastructure improvements to enhance system availability, redundancy, and security. These initiatives included deploying a backup solution and completing critical service upgrades for essential systems such as the 911 CAD RMS. Additionally, the county completed a new 911 backup center, adopted updated IT policies, and established a technology review team. Efforts to advance transparency included the development of criminal justice reform dashboards. There were upgrades to operating systems and PC deployment processes, improving both security and efficiency. The county enhanced overall cyber hygiene by implementing best practices, proactively addressing potential vulnerabilities, and piloting collaborations with New York State. These measures position the county to provide a secure and resilient digital environment, effectively protecting against emerging cyber threats. The GIS team achieved key milestones, including updates to agriculture, district, and unique natural area data, significant progress on the partial tax mapping migration to Pro, while onboarding and mentoring new tax map staffing. The team further enhanced skills and organizational capacity through professional development opportunities, such as participating in the ESRI conference and GIS Management Academy trainings. For planning, the County Planning Department secured $825,000 from NYSERDA to construct a solar array at the Health Department and develop the Mobility Vision Plan 2024 through 27. It was awarded funds through the Community Housing Development Fund to support the development of 143 additional affordable housing units. Additionally, the county received funding from the Park Foundation and NYSERDA to conduct a feasibility study for a district heating system. To enhance community preparedness, the county created a Navigating Electrical Outages Proactive Steps for Today and Tomorrow's Electrified World, a guide to address electric grid outages. The county entered into an agreement with Point Broadband and applied for New York State Connect All funds to expand high-speed internet access to underserved addresses and addressed across the region. In probation, the county received grant funding to continue participation in the GIVE program, aimed at reducing gun-involved violence in Tompkins County and enhanced collaboration with local and state law enforcement partners. A data dashboard was released for public use to increase transparency. Multiple policies and procedures were updated to align with evidence-based best practices, and the county achieved 100% compliance with staff training and goals and standards. Additionally, a 99% DNA collection rate was attained in compliance with DCGS requirements. To further support community resources, the county initiated a day reporting pilot project to revitalize the utilization of the day reporting program. Moving on to recycling and materials management. Despite staff transitions and the department maintained high-quality customer service and program delivery. A planned capital project at the center was completed, including ADA-compliant upgrades and HVA system upgrade. The department launched the Compost Club initiative, providing 24-hour access to food scraps collection at 3 drop-off locations in environmental justice areas. A draft local solid waste management plan was submitted to the New York State DEC, incorporating public comments, and steps were taken to address state feedback. Additionally, unanticipated concerns with the leachate collection from closed landfills were addressed through expanded testing, permit renewal, and exploration of backup facilities. The Tompkins County Sheriff achieved accreditation for the Road Patrol Division through the New York State Law Enforcement Accreditation Council, created a transparency hub that serves as an interactive dashboard portal that makes the Sheriff's Office data visual and user-friendly for community members. It implemented a body-worn camera program in the Corrections Division. It revitalized the Jail Garden program collaboratively with Ultimate Reentry Opportunity Initiative, and created a new corrections lieutenant position and filled it promotionally, hired a new corrections captain, and implemented a transition plan for the incoming and outgoing corrections captain. The Department of Social Services, by November 2024, 1,039 child welfare reports were received and addressed. Family Treatment Court expanded to include preventive services cases, and the Child Support Division launched a confinement cost reduction program to forgive stagnant medical debt. An internal DEIA focus group was created to address staff training needs and improve internal approaches. The department hired and onboarded and trained 39 new social services staff in 2024. Additionally, it developed, staffed, and opened a county-operated Code Blue shelter site while advancing efforts toward a county-operated and coordinated THA shelter program. Veteran Services moved into their new home for the Tompkins County Department of Veteran Services. They received a recognition from the Finger Lakes chapter of Vietnam Veterans of America at the office of New York State Senator Leah Webb. Hosted a reception for women veterans in Tompkins County, celebrated an inaugural event for the Vietnam Era Veterans Recognition Day, and co-hosted their first welcome back cookout for the local college veterans with red team, white and blue. And they launched a group dedicated to Tompkins County women veterans, initiated Tompkins County Women's Veterans Listserv, and increased the profile of Operation Greenlight. At Whole Health, they opened a mental health satellite clinic at Brown Road, launched Second Care Team in partnership with the Ithaca Police Department, and secured New York State Office of Mental Health funding for a third term, and developed a program with the legislature support to provide a stipend to early intervention providers to reduce wait lists for children's therapy services. At Workforce Development, they employed 118 youth at 51 work sites through the Summer Youth Employment Program, constructed 50 supportive work experiences for young adults through the JobLink program, created monthly newsletters providing updates, events, and special features on participants and partners, maintained distinction at the low-risk Workforce Development Board for New York State, 54 trainings and certifications, 21 supportive services, 75% addressing transportation barriers to training or employment, and over 20 businesses provided hiring supports, job seeker referrals, and information on available employee training services. For youth services, they developed an electronic safe harbor screening tool to streamline client referrals and improve access to services for county departments and community partners. They recruited and onboarded a youth service specialist to spearhead the inclusion and accessibility initiative fostering equity in youth programming. They enhanced positive youth development programming by supporting municipal youth services and collaborating with rural youth service managers while guiding the Trumansburg and Ulysses Commission in launching their own youth development initiatives. And they facilitated 2 intensive 8-hour sessions on commercial sexual exploitation of children for over 20 staff members across youth serving agencies in Tompkins County.
And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Bridget or Norma? Mike.
That was amazing. To both of you for your great presentation. And I like the optics with the pictures of the various departments. That was a lot of work to put together. I can see that. And a lot of work in the departments to even come up with their accomplishments so that you folks could help put it together for us. Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome.
Yeah, Veronica, go ahead.
Just wanted to second what Mike said. Thank you, and thanks to the department heads, and thanks to every single one of our staff for doing the things that were said on the slides, many slides.
Yeah, I'd like to third that. It's just awesome, the amount of work and projects and initiatives that we have going, and to see them all listed in one place. That's not even all of them, but to see all that, it's just incredible. Maybe some of you have had this same experience. People say, what is it that the county does? I'm like, it's kind of a hard one to answer, but now we could just hand them this packet. Thanks. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Bridget.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Norma. Next up are reports. First up is County Administrator Corsa Akumfi.
Thank you very much. So just a quick one. I think what we've been through already simplify my report, but I just wanted to add that I did communicate to all of you earlier I believe last week, we offered the job of the communication director to Monica Salve. She due to start, I believe, first week in February. So we are anticipating her start date. You're also aware Commissioner Kilpat announced her retirement in July. We've already begun the processes of getting on board to try and start recruitment process as soon as possible to get somebody in place, hopefully in tandem to the date that she will depart, so that we can have a good transition as well. There's ongoing discussion with the 227 Sherry Road. We're very close. We are not there yet, but very close to close. And we have a various conversation on the cold blue shelter and the challenges we're dealing with. We're having people on a daily call trying to identify challenges and come up with solutions, and working closely with DSS and other key partners in the process of managing people in need within the county, especially this week. It's been extremely cold, so there's a huge demand for services, and we continue to collaborate and provide support to our residents as much as we can. So that's my report for today.
Very good. Questions or comments for Corsa? Okay, thank you. Next up, Maury Josephson, County Attorney.
I look forward to working with you on the to-do list. Otherwise, I have no specific report. I think everything that was on our list is ongoing, so you know what we're up to. And I am always open to questions and available whenever you have them, either now or offline.
Questions or comments from Maury? Okay, thank you. Next up, Lori Scarrett, Director of Finance, joining us remotely.
Good evening. Tonight I have the sales tax report for November. The Comptroller's Office tells us that sales tax in November was up 3%, county for statewide, and county and city sales tax collections outside of New York City increased 1.8%, with 61% of the counties experiencing a year-over-year increase. Unfortunately, Tompkins County did not share in that increase, and for the month of November, the overall county saw a decrease of 2.53%, with the county share mirroring that at 2.53% decrease. The municipality saw a 4.11% decrease, and the city of Ithaca a 0.73% decrease. Again, we are lagging behind 2023 slightly, but mirroring it pretty closely. So that's the report for sales tax. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions or comments for Lori? Mike Lane.
Lori, do you know if the decrease was in counties in this region? I know Cortland was down over 4%, or is it just, are other counties up?
I don't have that information at the moment, but I can certainly get that to you and let you know the surrounding counties.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else for Lori? Lori, did you have anything else for us?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are up to the consent agenda. Yes. Consent agenda, resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. For appointments, we have to the Tompkins County Youth Services Board, Susan Ainsley, Village of Lansing representative. From the Government Operations Committee to the Tompkins County Historical Commission, George McGonigal, member, and Simon St. Laurent, member. To the Public Information Advisory Board, Kate Supron, at-large member. From the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee to the Environmental Management Council, Thomas Hirasuna, at-large member, Daniel Antonioli, at-large member, and Ace Dufrance, student number 1 representative. And to the Water Resources Council, Andrew Murphy, at-large member. Got Resolution A from the Housing and Economic Development Committee. Budget adjustment, community development block grant awards Healthy Homes for Department of Planning and Sustainability, ID 12995. Resolution B, budget adjustment, Community Housing Development Fund Round 22 and Round 23 awards, Department of Planning and Sustainability, ID number 12996. From the Government Operations Committee, Resolution C, authorization to extend an offer of Tompkins County Center for History and Culture tenancy to Friends of Stewart Park, ID 12964. From the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Resolution D, authorization to accept New York State non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant for a Fall Creek Stream Corridor assessment, ID 13005. Resolution E, budget adjustment, Department of Planning and Sustainability, 2024 budgeted funding for the Municipal Parks and Trails Grant Program, ID 13012. Resolution F, budget adjustment, Department of Planning and Sustainability, 6 Mile Creek Stream Corridor Assessment Grant, ID number 13013. Resolution G, acceptance of snowmobile trail grant for the 2024-2025 season, ID 13015. Resolution H, budget reappropriation of grant funds to the 2024 budget for the Business Energy Advisors Program, ID 13018. And Resolution I, acceptance of grant from the Park Foundation to continue to provide consultant services through the Business Energy Advisors Program, ID number 13019. Is there somebody that would move the consent agenda? Travis moves, Veronica seconds. We have we do need a roll call, yes? Thanks.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
It's 11-9.
11-0, the motion carries. Okay, we had talked about moving a few items up, so we're going to go next to Resolution N, which comes out of the Government Operations Committee. Susan Curry, Vice Chair. Susan, will you start us off on Resolution N, please?
You just find it here.
Yes.
Yes. Resolution N, which is document ID 12903, is adoption of local law number A of 2025, a local law adopting the tax exemption allowed pursuant to new real property tax law, section 42(1)(p).
Is there a second? Randy seconds. Discussion. I know Jay is on the line. Jay, if you wanted to say anything, this would be a great moment. You don't have to if you don't want.
I'm a man of few words some nights, and nope, we're good. If anybody has questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay, last call for debate on this resolution, N. Mike Lane.
Just want to say that I think the reason to support this is because of the need for housing, and this helps support folks adding units, adding space that will add more housing for individuals.
Any further discussion? We're ready to vote then? Oh, thank you. Rich John.
Mike really covered it. I just wanted to say I will support the resolution. It is a good way of trying to use this as an incentive to spur infill where there's existing housing and use the services and roads and everything else that are already there. So I support.
Okay, we're ready to vote now then? Roll call vote, please.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 11-0, the motion is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we had also talked about moving Resolution P up. It is 7:20. What's your preference here? Should we dive into it? Should we do something else first? Should we take our break now? Lee, I see you have some
I think you're
opinion.
going to have some discussion on this one. It probably is a good time to take a break.
Take a break.
Okay, going once, going twice. Very good. Okay, we are in recess until 7:30, and then we'll start with Resolution P.
solar farm meeting coming up.
Okay, we are back in session, everybody. And we are going to start with Resolution P. This was an individual member filed resolution. And let's see, it was filed by legislators Corman and Pillar. Who would like to introduce it?
I think me, because I'm
You're here.
officially here.
It's all yours.
So I'd like to move Resolution P, and particularly the second revised version that you all have, with not just the bolding, but the highlighting. It adds 4 whereases and does not delete anything from the version that went out with the agenda packet to the public. This is resolution number P, ID number 13034, resolution opposing Cargill's renewal permit application for the Cayuga Salt Mine.
And is there a second? Shauna Black seconds. Discussion. Shauna. Sorry, Veronica, you moved it. Did you want to say something more?
You go ahead.
I'll just say briefly, context of the resolution, as you probably know, is the company Cargill has a salt mine underneath the big lake, Cayuga Lake, near us. They want to make some changes to that. It requires a permit from the Department of Environmental Conservation. Wow, I never say that out. The state DEC, and unusually, the Cargill, through this significant operation that experts believe is not obviously going to not harm the lake, there are processes in place to do an environmental impact statement and have a public process around evaluating the effect of the salt mine operation on our clean water source, and Cargill has refused to engage with that, which it's a private company. It can make its choices. This resolution is urging the DEC to essentially hold it accountable and to go through this public process for the sake of the water. And there's more commentary, much more commentary in the whereases that others can speak to.
Shauna, did you still want to turn?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, this was not the resolution that came out of committee. Whenever I initially read this, I think one thing that we hear as legislators is we can write about a scientific resolution and the environmental impacts, but I really wanted to make sure that we talk about the people in our community that could be affected by some of the decisions that we make here. So I did want to add a few whereases, and if I could just take a few seconds to read those.
Please.
Okay. Whereas the Cayuga Salt Mine, operated by Cargill Incorporated, has been a significant employer in Tompkins County, providing jobs and economic benefits to many residents. And whereas the Tompkins County Legislature values the contribution of Cargill's employees and acknowledges their role in supporting families and the local economy. And whereas the ongoing operations of the mine conflict with Tompkins County commitment to sustainability, environmental stewardship, and mitigating climate change impacts as outlined in the county's comprehensive plan and environmental policies. And whereas the Tompkins County Legislature recognizes the importance of supporting workers employed by Cargill, including through our workforce development programs and economic transition assistance for industries transitioning to sustainable practices.
Mike Sigler.
So is that the amendment? Like, did she just move that amendment?
It was moved, Veronica moved it as a member filed. I think that's fine, right? Because it wasn't voted on in a committee.
No, but these
Yeah.
four whereases.
Meant to move the version that includes those 4 whereases.
So I'd like to move an amendment, Dan.
Yes.
I would like to strike that third new whereas. Whereas the ongoing operation of the mine conflict with Tompkins County commitment to sustainability, environmental stewardship, mitigating climate change impacts as outlined in the county's comprehensive plan and environmental policies.
Is there a second for that amendment? Randy seconds it. Discussion, Mike.
I'm moving to strike it just because I don't believe that to be true, and I haven't seen any evidence that that is true. I don't, the mine has no impact on climate change per se. As for environmental stewardship, there's never been any evidence that the mine harms the environment, so I don't understand why that would be in there. And as for sustainability, this would have, again, zero impact on sustainability. So it just doesn't seem to fit into the resolution.
Further discussion. Deborah.
Yeah, thank you. It's difficult to talk about the impact of the mine on our environment and on the lake because there's never been any transparency in the process that would have provided us with the information that an open environmental impact study would have provided. Clean and various other groups have tried for years to just get an environmental impact statement on the changes that the mine has wanted to make, and we've had absolutely no success. I'm not saying that it's highly likely that the mine could collapse. It's not impossible. And the problem is that the low probability is more than offset by the catastrophic result that a collapse could have. All I would really like to see is transparency and an open environmental impact study. And for that reason, I'll be supporting this. And I don't support Mr. Sigler's proposed amendment. Thank you.
Rich.
Thanks. Yeah, I would like to speak to the main motion after we address the amendment. I would feel more comfortable doing that without this whereas clause there, because it seems to raise a lot of highly charged issues that are separate from the exact issue Deborah just raised. I'd like us to have that discussion about the environmental impact statement and the information the public's entitled to. And as I said, I'd feel more comfortable voting on that rather than including this further statement in this whereas. So I'll support Mike's proposed amendment. Thanks.
Shauna.
I guess my question to Mike and Randy is, if we withdraw this whereas, are you going to vote for the resolution?
Well, I won't be, but like I said, it just doesn't seem to go into the resolution.
Randy.
First, I'd like to talk about, in our last F&I meeting, Mike Lane brought up salt, road salt, and our director of highway claimed and said that the Cargill and Lansing is one of the few places we can get road salt. And that there's one other mine that was providing salt, but they're not fulfilling their requirements and requests right now. So road salt also protects people on roads so they can drive in this kind of weather, and there's safety issues with that. So I just wanted to bring that up, but I will vote for it if that's removed.
Other discussion on the amendment? Yeah, I'll take a turn. I'm also uncomfortable with that, but I'll vote for the whole resolution. But that particular whereas I'm a little uncomfortable with because I don't think it's in conflict with our policies and comprehensive plan. So either way, I'll vote for it, but I would rather see it removed. Any other discussion? Veronica.
I guess I would say I like that whereas, but I would be comfortable supporting removing it if it will get more support for the overall resolution and in particular the resolves, which are the meat of it anyway. I guess I'm saying this to kill a little time to tease that out.
Okay. Anybody else before we vote on the amendment? Okay, so this is a vote on the amendment to strike the third whereas. Roll call vote, please.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
No.
Deborah Dawson,
No.
Rich John,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
No.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
I have 8-3.
8-3, the motion carries. That whereas is struck. We're back to the main motion, which includes everything except for that whereas. Mike Lane.
Yeah, we hear that this resolution is about just requiring asking DEC to require a full EIS, which I think is a great idea, but it doesn't really say that. It has a lot of other language in here, and I'm just worried that what's being proposed here is a precursor to asking for the mine to close. And this is part of our economic development. It's real jobs, real good paying jobs in Tompkins County. Everyone wants us to spend a lot of money on social services and other things, which we do, but we can't do it unless we have the taxation available, and people need to have jobs in order to pay the taxes. So I don't think I can support it the way it was. It was a simple request to DEC to ask for a DEIS. I would support that, but I'm not going to support it the way it is.
Veronica.
Sorry, I might have more to say later, but I just wanted to make a small amendment. And the amendment would be in the whereas at the bottom of the first page where it says the towns of Ulysses, Enfield, Newfield, Danby, Dryden, and Ithaca. I'd like to add in after the Dryden comma, I'd like to add Caroline, comma, Lansing, comma, because since this was originally written, those two towns have also passed similar resolutions.
Is there a second for the amendment to add Caroline and Lansing? Travis moves, seconds it. Discussion on the amendment. So I see the hands up.
I don't know if I get to say this as the mover, but it's friendly to me, obviously. Is it friendly to everyone?
Is there anyone that this is unfriendly to? Okay, very good. That's incorporated into the resolution then. Okay, next up is Ann.
Thanks for letting me chime in. I have two things. I wanted to just summarize some comments that were sent to us by the chair of the EMC, the Environmental Management Council, and then I just have a quick question, and I'm telling you the question now so that maybe Veronica can read these, is the total list of the municipalities who have passed either a similar resolution or have written a letter and that recently regarding the environmental impact statement and their permit. So this is from comments sent to all of us from Kate Darfler. She's the chair of the Environmental Management Council, as I said. And just to summarize the comments from her, that she puts in there too, it's not asking for the closure of the mine, really just asking for transparency in what is happening at the mine, and also requesting an environmental impact statement like any other, like a newer one would have to do. Many other salt mines have to do this, but they've been exempted because of the age of the mine and before these regulations came about. And I think it's about time, and this is speaking for myself now, I think it's about time that we got some information on what is going on in the mine, and just to make sure that we can have comment. There's times where the people can comment, but we really a lot of times don't know what we're commenting on or asking, or if we need to be concerned, because we don't have the information. So I would just ask folks to, my colleagues, to think about this. This is to get information for our community, for our lake, and for the employees who are there, to make it a safer place for the employees, possibly. Thank you.
Rich?
Thanks, Dan. I will support the resolution. At the same time, I would say I have certainly spoken in the past about Cargill. I believe they're a good employer in our community, and they've been a responsible company. Years ago, I had an opportunity to go down in the mine, and I saw their operation. There is a tremendous emphasis on mine safety there. At least there was when I was there, and everything I've heard since then is that continues, and they really have a very good safety record. With that, and I'd also say that there's always these references to Retzoff. Having gone through this in the past, the geologic circumstances here are quite a bit different than that mine, and I'm not sure you can really draw many comparisons between those two. With all that said, it seems entirely reasonable that the community should feel very comfortable with the actions being taken. And I also note that the county, through the Industrial Development Agency, has supported the mine and recently supported their construction of the second shaft as a production measure, but also as a safety measure. And we should be good partners with Cargill, but Cargill should be a good partner with us too. And I anticipate if there's a public hearing, there'll be a lot of people that'll come out and say terrible things about Cargill and say the mine should be closed. But they're entitled to say that. And they should have that opportunity, given the public nature of the resource being used here. So I will support the resolution. Thanks.
Deborah?
Yeah, a couple of things. First, just a point of order. I may be drugged to the gills with cold products, but did we actually take a vote to get this member-filed resolution on the floor? Did I miss that?
It was submitted in time to make it to the agenda without a vote.
Oh, okay, thanks. The other thing I would say is, first of all, to withhold support because you think that this is a precursor to us moving to close the mine. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, nobody's trying to close the mine, except perhaps Cargill, from what we hear. But more to the point, Rich mentioned his tour of the mine and his understanding that Cargill has always been a responsible, safety-minded business. And that may well all be true. The community's pushback on stuff that the mine has wanted to do, I think, is in some ways directly related to the fact that there's never been an environmental impact study. I mean, if there was an environmental impact study and the process was transparent, the public could be reassured. But the fact that it seems to have consistently taken place behind the scenes and that everything that the mine has tried to do has been supported by a private geologist, which, as I understand from the comments, is now controlled by Cargill, makes people suspicious that Cargill is keeping a secret or something. I think it would only help the public perception and certainly the public peace of mind if we could get an environmental impact study on this. Thank you.
Mike Sigler.
So I feel like I have to do this I used to have to do this every 5 years. Now I have to do this every 2 years, but I'll do it again. So I'll try not to take too much time. I mean, I didn't bring in a diorama today to show the different levels of the mine, but I can only carry that around for so long. So 350 jobs. Then, of course, those people have spouses, other things. So the economic impact, it's about $170 million from what I understand for the county every year. That's a lot. For my school district, Lansing, I think they pay in $4 million. Those jobs, I read here the whereas, we talk about workforce development programs, economic transition assistance. And yeah, I mean, it's all BS, frankly. None of that's going to happen. And Deborah can say, I don't know why you base this on people trying to close the mine. Well, because I lived through a power plant closing in Lansing, where you had the cleanest coal-fired power plant in the country. And the activists wanted it closed, and Andrew Cuomo wanted it. It was one of 2 left in the state. They wanted it closed, and that's what happened. And then what happened with the coal plant? They said, we want to repower with natural gas. And again, that was shot down. And so 75 people, their spouses, lost their jobs, and there was no retraining. There was no, hey, we're going to pay Lansing X amount of money. I think Lansing got $50,000 from the state as like an offset for a $160 million assessed value power plant. And why? So that now we can buy that power from Pennsylvania. That's what happened. And regardless that China continues to build a coal plant a week, we decided just to give it away, basically. So to say that there aren't people that want to close the mine, the head of the Clean website says that is the ultimate goal. The head of Clean, one of the founders, that is the ultimate goal. The 3 people that spoke today, I think, have been pretty clear about that. Maybe not Mr. Eden, but certainly the other 2 folks that spoke, that is an ultimate goal of theirs. Also, I mean, this resolution, just 2 more things. This resolution basically says to me that Sean Mahar, Tim Walsh, Derek Glantz, Jonathan Sturco just simply are either corrupt or don't know what they're doing. They're these folks at DEC who oversee this, who go in the mine at least once a year to do inspections. Apparently other people know better. I got a letter from the Water Resources Council, and I wrote back to them because they asked a bunch of questions. I don't know anything about the sale. I don't know if it is for sale. I mean, everything's for sale, right? So I have no idea where that stands. But the beginning part had about 7 questions, and I knew the answers to all of those. And yeah, a lot of the answers are out there. And we say, oh, we just want more information. We want more information. But then I see when people get more information that it gets twisted. It's a lot like when one of the groups, Clean, came out and said, well, look at Rogues Harbor. One of the windows is lower, and that's because of salt subsidence. So I go and talk to the owner, and they're like, no, that has nothing to do with it. That was when the building was being built. So I go and I'm looking at this, and you've misused the information. You've basically told something that isn't true to advance whatever agenda this is. I was listening to Mr. Eden earlier, and we talked about the enhanced environmental review that the Cargill mine has to do. And that's because a large part of the mine, which is now closed, most of the mine is actually sealed off and closed. Most of that is under this enhanced environmental review. And why is that? Well, because it was already existent, but it seems like the main difference between that and a full EIS is public comment. And frankly, public comment's open right now, and people are commenting, and I'm seeing the letters. I don't think there's been a lack of public comment when it comes to the Cayuga mine. And a lot of this information, which Clean has most of it, and I think it's on their website, it is out there. It's not like it's been hidden. The state of New York has it and has published it. So I guess I just don't understand what the resolution, it seems to want this EIS, which is basically a call for more public comment, despite the fact that we're in a public comment period yet again, just as we were when the other mine shaft was going to get built, just as it was when they wanted to extend that extra 15 miles up the lake, and they had to renew their permit for that. And even an Article 78 was filed, and the courts found that Article 78 didn't have merit. So it's not like this doesn't have a lot of public scrutiny already. So thank you.
Lee, did you want to take a turn? Yep.
Yes, Mike, I share your skepticism. And going into this tonight, the last 2 whereases really said it all to me. And even if we do take out the next to last whereas, The point seems to be that we're heading down a road of preparing to support the workers that wouldn't be working there anymore. And I want to tell you, Cargill represents many jobs in my district. And I probably got as many or more workers than any of the districts, including yours, Mike. And Cargill's been a well-paying, livable wage-paying employer, and it benefits a lot of families in my district. Just simply can't support this. I'll tell you, a thriving economy and a stable tax base for our county or any other requires a diverse mixture of business, be it commercial, industrial, retail, agricultural, recreational, what have you. And if we were to collectively advocate for the closure of those businesses that are perceived in various quarters as environmentally or socially unfriendly, we'd pretty soon find ourselves limited to working in almost exclusively in education, healthcare, or government. And we are rapidly going that way in this county. And I don't think that bodes well for future generations of workers and taxpayers in Tompkins County. I won't be supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wanted to speak to Resolution P? Veronica.
First, I'd like to read a bit of the first resolved to remind people. It's the part that formally requests that the New York DEC, there's three things, and the first one says, deny Cargill's permit application or alternatively rescind the negative declaration, this is of environmental significance, and require the preparation of a comprehensive environmental impact statement to assess all potential environmental risks associated with the proposed activities. Which I'm sure lots of people want the mine to close, but that is not what this resolution is about. I see it as more about the lake than the mine. Like, yes, there's a bunch of good jobs at the mine, or at the mine for Cargill. And it happens to be Cargill we're talking about, but the reason is because the lake is important. Our water is precious. It's like Deborah said, it's not that likely to collapse, but it would be such a severe impact, like environmentally, socially, to our community, our health, everything, if it did, that it is worth being a lot more sure than it sounds like people are. No one's going to convince me right now that everything is safe and fine, because I wouldn't know, because I am not educated in the ways of Underlake mines. But so instead I look to processes we have and the prevailing wisdom and the disagreements from experts, and which is overwhelmingly saying now, at least go through the environmental impact statement process, which isn't just public comment. It produces a state, like there's a work product produced in a way that public comment doesn't necessarily have. And part of the point of that is that it doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about whether the industry is perceived as being environmentally harmful. You can have a lot more evidence behind what might be the environmental harm and the harm to the people. Another thing here, I guess, to all the talk about how the economic benefits of the Cargill mine are important and the jobs are important. Like, I don't disagree with any of that. But when there's a conflict between, say, in this case, the government saying, hey, we're trying to protect our water and we have these parameters for that, and we'd like to stick with that, and a business saying, we're trying to salt the people's roads or maybe make money for our owners or somewhere in between there, and we want to do this, that, and the other to get to do that. And when there's conflict, if at the end of the day, we always let the business have its way, then we're just going down the road of oligarchy, I guess. And I don't even know what government ultimately is doing. I'm jumping way to conclusions, but this is like, the resolution is not saying screw you, Cargill. It's saying, like, at the end of the day, like, meet the requirements that government has set out. It's disappointing if they don't, and confusing if Cargill's is, like, responsive to people. You know, I haven't personally talked with their leaders. I imagine that, Mike, you have, this Mike. It's disappointing why they wouldn't engage with the community more, but we shouldn't just let their decision be the decision. Cargill Incorporated is not in charge of Tompkins County.
Does anybody else want to speak to Resolution P? Okay, we're going to have a vote then.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
No.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
No.
Mike Sigler.
No.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. The motion carries 8-3. All right, we are going back to the order. We are going through our standing and special committees, and we're up to the Downtown Facilities Special Committee, Randy Brown, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. We did meet on Tuesday the 14th, and we talked about many things, and one of the most important was that we have finalized the contract with Holt, but also the discussion on what's going to happen to the buildings that we have, the Quebec building and the law office building first. And the committee unanimously agreed that we did not want the homeless shelter to be in the Quebec building another year. So that was decided unanimously by our group anyways. And so we talked with Arel about that, and we have to decide on another place for a Code Blue shelter, and we need to make a decision by July 1st was the decision we talked about, because if we decide to build a temporary one out of a building down on Cherry Street, it's going to take him at least 3 months to get it ready. So Greg's aware we have about 5 months to figure that out. Holt and our planning and sustainability department are working with SHPOs, talk about their process. I think we need to have a strategy on how we're going to work with SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, as opposed to starting to meet with them. What is our strategy to discuss with them? So we'll be having that discussion soon. But we're moving along in the project, and thanks for continuing the committee.
Questions or comments for Randy? Okay, thank you. Health and Human Services Committee, Shauna Black, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. We really focused much of our meeting on the Department of Social Services Advisory Board, and we had a few options as far as how we can move forward. And the committee discussed our options and really thought that it would make sense for us to establish an advisory board to the legislature. And we were going to come up with the different people and roles in the community that we might want to see as part of that committee, or as part of that task force. So we started the conversation. My assumption is that Travis will probably take that forward whenever he's chair of HHS. The other conversations that we had, we did department check-ins, and also the conversation will need to continue on the Office of Human Rights and where that department and office will be headed for the upcoming year. I do have one resolution, what is that? I think that's a J.
J.
Yep. Resolution J, request to amend Tompkins County Opioid Settlement Fund Contract OC or OSFC, Cuga Addiction Recovery Services, CARS ID 12965. I so move, please.
Travis seconds. Discussion.
So they actually wanted to reallocate their funds to provide funding so that they can update their software for electronic records. So they asked to reallocate money.
Any other debate on this resolution? Okay, vote please.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 11-0, the motion carries. Anything further from HHS?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Housing and Economic Development Committee, Travis Brooks, Vice Chair.
Our next meeting is the first Wednesday in February. There's an amendment, Resolution P, ID 13034, a resolution opposing, no, I'm sorry.
K.
Resolution K, ID 13027, appointments to Industrial Development Agency and Tompkins County Development Corporation Board of Directors.
Is there a second to the resolution? Mike Lane, discussion. Okay, let's have a vote then, please.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 11-0, the motion carries. Anything else from the HED Committee?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Lee Shirtliff, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Facilities and Infrastructure met last Thursday, and in addition to an update that Randy provided us on the downtown facilities and related discussion, we did have a report from Terry Carroll and Arel Lamaro updating us on various initiatives with Green Facilities Phase 2. We will have a resolution on the next legislative agenda to accept clean energy tax credits. And the only thing of note that I would put out here today is that Arel did tell the committee that he has filed a notice to proceed forthwith with replacement of the boiler at the Human Services Building, as well as the solar canopy at the Public Health Department. And those projects will be coming under Green Facilities Phase 2. And more to follow on various items that are being developed and options for geothermal at different sites that is under consideration.
Excellent. Questions or comments for Lee? Randy.
It's more of a comment. In our meeting, we talked about the project at the airport for the fire and emergency system there that is required by the FAA. And one of the things that came up is that they're getting a lot of grants for this project, but the grant did not include geothermal, if memory serves. So we talked about that quite a bit. I was unclear on where this new building is going to go, and apparently it's going pretty close to a public safety building, which surprised me because I was ignorant about it, frankly. It made me aware that I had no idea really what the plan was up there. I just assumed it was going to be close to where their current offices were, and so now it's going to be a completely different building in a different area, quite a ways away from where they are currently. So I'm struggling with that one, and one of the discussions came up is if we did geothermal, could we, which is more money that needs to be allocated by the legislature. I'm not sure if that's going to be for the next meeting, but it's my understanding that to move forward with this application that needs to go to the feds and the states is that we have to approve this money ahead of time So I'm a little confused on that.
Is there anyone that wants to speak to that point, to Randy's question?
Other than I expect it to come back to facilities and infrastructure for further discussion, I don't have an answer for that tonight.
My understanding is we don't need to approve it ahead of time, but we have to understand that if we get these grants that pays for everything but geothermal, that we are going to have to come up with the last piece of money to do the geothermal.
And the question came up, does it make sense to invest, to look at geothermal for this project as well as the public safety building when that time comes? So that's the discussion that was happening, I think. And it may make sense to do that. So I was just unclear on it. So.
I do want to point out too, for anyone that's listening, when you say that this proposed building is going to be near the public safety building, that's true, but it's on the other side of the fence, the airport fence. I just want to make sure everyone, listening understood that.
Right. Just to follow up, there was an application for consolidated funding phase 2 for the Department of Emergency Response, which is what was not selected. And that has put facilities and planning back to looking at options to be able to fund geothermal for the Department of Emergency Response. The questions then came in as to how this may relate to other activities in the airport complex, such as the building of the new fire and rescue building, such as the public safety building at the far end. So it's all part of a conversation, but suffice to say that the locations that were brought up, we're told by Arel, are just too far apart to make them a cooperative effort or something that could feed all of those facilities. So not abandoned, but not something that we have the answer to that we thought we might have.
Thank you. Mike Lane.
I think all that's been said is exactly right. And I think that we also decided that we would like to have a look at all of this and at the airport and get a better understanding of the reasons for this separation, for example. And, perhaps at a future meeting we could have the engineers down or from CNS or whoever would best be able to explain all this to us.
And I think we're nearing the completion of the strategic plan for the airport as well. So it all would meld together quite well, I'm sure.
Anything else for the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee? Okay, thank you. Next up, Government Operations Committee, Susan Curry, Vice Chair.
Government Operations met on January 6th. And we do have some additional resolutions. We have Resolution L, which is number 12986. And this is a contingent fund request from the 2024 capital program for voting machines. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Can I get a second on that? Randy seconds. Any debate, discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote then.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 11-0, the motion carries.
And we have an additional resolution M, number 13022, appropriation from contingent fund for the 2025 legislator travel and training at $14,000.
Mike Lane seconds. Discussion. Randy.
I'm a little confused by this one. Did this go through our budget and then we didn't vote on it and now we don't have the money now? Is that basically the story?
That's right. We didn't fund that budget line.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Lane.
Randy, I think we put it into contingency so we could decide what to do. But if we don't put it back over into the legislature budget, then every time we've got to have a new vote and a new tapping of the contingency fund for each time. And it really needs to go back to the legislature budget so that it can be handled by the clerks.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Rich.
Thank you. Rich?
Mike got it. It's fine.
Ready for a vote then?
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 11-0, the motion carries. Anything else from government operations?
That's it?
Any questions or comments? Randy?
People hearing me here. I actually spoke to Maury about this quite a bit, and since it's going to be such a tough budget year again, and we voted to add 2 legislators to our group, and I was going to bring a resolution forward that Maury convinced me that was very difficult to do, because I was the only one that voted no on extending that. So I did some research on it, and I just wanted to I think it's a complete waste of money. It's going to cost us, Katrina gave me, it's going to cost us about $75,000 for each 2 new people. So and I just don't see the value in bringing in 2 more people. And so I wanted to know if there's any, if this ever happened before. And so I looked at the number of people in the New York State Assembly, and there are 150 people in the New York State Assembly. And that number has not changed since 1894. And we had 6.5 million people in 1894. We have 9.34 million people in 2020, and they represented a lot more people. So why can't, for changing of our population of 4,000 people, we're adding 2 new legislators? It's a complete waste of money, but I realize that it's not going to change anything, so thanks for hearing me.
Mike Lane.
I won't say it's a complete waste of money, Randy, but I certainly agree that we don't need to add 2 more legislators. But the efforts we had with the Independent Redistricting Commission were not successful when we suggested 2 things. One, that there be, they not go to that number of legislators, or they reduce the number, and that we have an odd number of legislators. Both of those efforts, even though we sent it back to them one time, came back the way we have it now.
Okay, moving on to the planning. Oh, sorry, Shauna.
Yeah, my understanding was that our population actually went up significantly to the point that we're still going to keep our around like 6,000 to 6,500 residents each. Is that not right? That is right. So it did go up like around 13,000 if we're adding 2 new legislators, right?
It went up about 4,000 or 5,000, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about 4 or 5,000. Yeah, that's right.
Huh, okay. Thank you.
We had 7,200 before.
And just to, and I appreciate the commission and the work they did. And if I sat down with them again for about 4 hours, I could draw some lines and make it work.
Okay, Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. Who's giving the report? Ann, are you giving the report tonight? Okay, very good. Ann Corman, Chair.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Just, I'd be willing to yield my time if Randy can redraw those lines in this amount of time. But so if I don't hear that interjection, we met, our meeting was last convened January 13th. And we had a number of resolutions, a lot of had to do with bookkeeping, finances for the end of the year, and regular items that come up each year. And the main thing I wanted to mention, and we already passed those on consent agenda, the main thing I wanted to mention was the Water Resources Council gave their yearly presentation to us and summary of what they've been doing. And I just wanted to highlight some of their goals. And so I'm just going to read them off here. To protect and enhance the surface water quality and quantity, protect and enhance groundwater quality and quantity, protect and restore riparian corridors, and riparian corridors are related to or situated on the banks of rivers. Protect and restore wetlands, participate in the creation and implementation of relevant watershed plans and initiatives that impact Tompkins County. And lastly, educate and inform municipal officials, the public, professionals, agency staff, and the media about water quality concerns and protective policies and practices. And I want to just let people know if they're interested in learning more about it. Of course, you can watch our last meeting on the YouTube website for the county. But you can also look at the agenda, and there's a link in the agenda to more information. And I found it really interesting. There's a lot of maps about wetlands and other things that they talked about that they work on protecting and providing information to our community. So I wanted to thank them, and I wanted to appreciate the opportunity to be chair of this committee again. And we don't know when we're going to have our meetings for 2025, but we've heard from all but one legislator, so I'll be letting other legislators know about that as soon as we have that nailed down. And that's all I have. Unless I missed anything, I'll defer to the Vice Chair, Dr. Pillar.
I think you got it all. Thanks.
Any questions or comments for the Peak Committee? Okay, thank you. I have no report for the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee, which brings us then to the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Mike Lane, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did meet on January 9th. Many of our resolutions have been on contingency or are going to be there in the future. One thing, you had asked us to look at who we should recommend for a representative on the Municipal Health Care Consortium Board. And the board was apparently, from what you told us, asking for a legislator. And we announced it at committee, and we also announced it here. I did last time we had a report. And the only volunteer we've had, and who our committee has chosen to recommend to you, is Shauna Black. And we appreciate the fact that Sean is willing to step into that important role, formerly covered by our county administrator, Lisa Holmes. The other thing is, I think the most important other thing is our resolution on the agenda tonight about the, and I'd like to move that. It's Resolution O, request for authorization to extend the additional 1% sales tax rate in Tompkins County, ID 12992. I move it.
Is there a second? Lee seconds.
This is something we have to do every 2 years, although there was a time when they gave us 4 years. This is a way that the state has to control counties, because we have to go back every 2 years and ask them for permission to continue the 1% sales tax, which we've had since, what, the early 1990s? And almost all of the counties have. But downstate, they got into a number of years ago, they got into a big fight with a couple of the big counties over something. They held back the approval of these 1% increases as a punishment for those counties for a long time. It left us hanging. The New York State Association of Counties regularly asks the state to do away with this process of having us reapply every 2 years for this. So far, that's been unsuccessful, even though all the counties, I think, would probably welcome it. So I would just point that out, and we certainly need this. Our budget wouldn't balance without it. And that's what I've got to say.
Any other discussion on Resolution O? Okay, let's have a vote, please.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. Motion carries 11-0.
Thank you. Shauna, anything else?
No, I don't think so. Thanks, Mike.
I noticed the new committee appointments. We're going to have 2 new members on the BCP, Randy and Veronica. We look forward to having them join us. And that's pretty much what I have tonight.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mike? Next up, Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Thank you. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee will be meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. right here. Nothing super momentous on the agenda. Still talking about our relationship with Team Jedi, and we might have some added people from Jedi joining us. We have a couple new people to consider appointing to the committee, and we could use another legislator, or 2 even, really. If anyone would like to join us, you could come to a meeting to try it out. I don't anticipate the schedule changing from 4th Wednesday of the month at 3 p.m. And it certainly won't be changing tonight because most of the members are not here, what with not being legislators.
Questions or comments for Veronica? Okay, thank you. Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. The Public Safety Committee will be meeting a week from today, Tuesday, January 28th at 1 o'clock. I'd note the jail numbers of 68 with 3 board outs. Other than that, I don't have any further report.
Thank you. Anything for Rich for the Public Safety Committee? Randy.
Yes, Norma sent me a map showing where the proposed ARFF SRE building is for the airport, and it's pretty close to the public safety building. And when we're looking at the public safety building, doing a project there, I'm wondering if that's going to be a problem as to how you're going to build this. So it's one of the questions I have. I really think we need to go over this. So
It might be a problem, it might be an opportunity, but I agree with you, Randy. It's something we probably should think about pretty hard, pretty quick.
Very good. Okay. We're up to the minutes of the previous meeting. Somebody want to move the minutes from January 7th? Travis moves, Veronica seconds. Any discussion?
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes. 11-0, the motion carries. Is there any unfinished business? Mike Lane.
Just an announcement, if I may, that the Historical Commission will meet again tomorrow night here in these chambers. Our interim county historian is Carol Kamen, who has a lot of experience, and she's called the meeting. And certainly it's always open to the public, and be glad to have anybody come who would like to.
Okay, I'm just going to read this statement again about what's going to happen next. Upon adjournment of this meeting, the legislature will be entering a closed session to meet with legal counsel to receive legal advice concerning a real estate matter and New York State regulatory requirements. So in just a minute, we will adjourn. We will take a few minutes to shut the cameras down, and then we will start this legal counsel session. And then that's it. Okay, we are adjourned.